Moat on the volley, and yes! Corner. What a start for West Bromwich Albion. Unbelievable! West Bromwich Albion have ruined his big day.
Line again, and it's Adam Wingy who gets the final touch, and West Bromwich Albion now have a 2-goal cushion.
The Baggies Podcast, giving you the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Hello and welcome back to the Baggies Podcast, where of course we're giving you all the latest news, views and opinions on all things Albion. Today, back again with another match reaction episode for you, episode 54 of the Baggies Podcast to be precise. Getting a bit old now, aren't we, really? But yeah, we're going to be talking all about the game against Blackburn, the 2-1 win at Ewood Park away at Blackburn Rovers. We're going to be giving you all the reaction to that. You're going to be getting my reaction. We're going to be getting an opposition reaction from Oliver from the Rovers Chat Blackburn page and YouTube channel, and then we're also going to be getting some fan reaction from you guys over on social media. Also a bit of transfer news in there. Not that there's been much, but we'll be talking about what I'd hope would be the plan for the next 7 days and throughout towards the end of the window, as deadline day is fast approaching, really. And it's a bit of worrying signs in terms of recruitment so far in the window for Albion, because there's not been much movement, but we'll be talking about later on in the episode. But you may be able to tell a bit of a difference with the sound quality. If you're listening on your audio device, or if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast from, you'll hopefully be able to tell a marked improvement in the audio, because if you're on video, you'll be able to see there's a big fat new microphone in front of me. It should be a little bit obvious, but hopefully you can tell a bit of sound quality difference. Hopefully this microphone, I've had a few comments where people have been like, the audio levels are a bit wrong, the audio levels are a bit messed up. And I've agreed with you, and I've made an investment, so don't say I don't ever do anything for you. There's a microphone here. Hopefully the sound quality should be a lot better. So let me know about that in the comments below. But yeah, before we get into this episode, make sure you're subscribed to the Baggies Podcast, whether that be on YouTube, where we're going for 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, whether it's on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, still massively helps. Or if you're on those podcast platforms, be sure to leave us a review. Just swipe down to the end of our podcast page, leave us however many stars you think we should get. I'd hope it'd be 5, and then just let us know your thoughts on the podcast or any way that we can improve it possibly. So yes, let's get straight into this match reaction video. Let's get straight into this podcast, talking all about Blackburn Rovers 1, West Bromwich Albion 2. Big win against Blackburn Rovers, to be fair. A very nice, solid victory, a solid performance from Albion, very competitive as we'd expect from this new Valérien Ismaël style of football, which is really good to see. Lots of competitiveness in the side, lots of physicality, lots of being first to the ball, which I think a lot of Albion fans, I think most of us would consider perhaps the bare minimum, really. But I think it's becoming a little bit more than that in terms of the bare minimum. I think under Valérien Ismaël, it's kind of what we're expecting now. I think it is like the bare minimum to be first to the ball, to try and press high up the pitch as well. I think that's becoming something that we're getting used to, really, in terms of the Valérien Ismaël style of play. We're just very physical. We're very bullish, not over the top, not snapping players on the opposition side, but starting to really force the issue in terms of, rather than tippy-tapping the ball around, that we're going to go straight through you as a side. So I do quite like that. I do quite like the physicality of the side, and it proved against a very hard-working Blackburn side, I think is the way to describe them. They didn't give up. They didn't say die. Obviously, that Ben Brereton Diaz goal, I think, really did kind of spur them on and give their fans a lot to shout about, which I think I wouldn't say has been massively coming in terms of the goal, in terms of the chances that Blackburn had created, but they had created a couple of chances. Perhaps in that first half, Diaz had a chance to score and nearly did, instead blazed over the bar. So I suppose in that sort of respect, they did have a chance to score and missed, but then that one came to them and was gifted on a plate, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I thought Blackburn, they were very high-spirited. Obviously, we'll get the opposition reaction of Oliver from the Rovers Chat channel, who's going to be giving us his insight into the game. And hopefully giving us a bit of how, because it's nice to know how the opposition really, they take the defeat. Obviously, Blackburn will be quite disappointed because although the chances really went our way and we hit the post several times, they were still in that game in the 90th minute, and they could have set it up for quite a grandstand finish, especially after their goal was just after half time, which sort of pulled the momentum a little bit in their favour. But we did regain control later on. But yeah, in terms of the game, I thought it was fairly West Brom dominated, not in terms of possession. We're never going to dominate possession stats. We had 48% of it, whereas Blackburn had 52% of it. But the shots on target were dominated by ourselves. 23 shots, 11 on target. The XG, expected goals, for some of those who may not be as football hip as those who do use XG. I don't particularly use it massively unless it's on Football Manager, but the XG for us, which is expected goals, this is sort of the value that, depending on how many times you get in and around the penalty area, depending on where your shots go, depending on where your shots are taken from, it creates a value of how many goals you should score. So ours was 4.02, and we scored 2 goals from it. So that gives you a sort of idea of how many goals we perhaps should have scored or could have scored in the Blackburn game on Saturday. I suppose, yeah, it's quite difficult when you think about it to put away every single one of those chances. But if we could have just put away another one, I think the second goal came at a perfect time. Just before, I think Blackburn conceded the goals at a not perfect time for them. They conceded in the first minute. Obviously, Alex Mohr, who we'll get to in a little bit, but Matt Phillips' goal just before half time is probably a terrible time to concede, really, for them. I think I feel a bit bad for Blackburn in that respect, because they conceded just they couldn't have picked a worse time to let the ball go into the back of the net. So yeah, in terms of that, I think that the game was fairly won by Albion in terms of possession, not in terms of possession, but in terms of chances created, in terms of shots. But Blackburn was still in it by the end of the game, and they could well have swiped something out of the game if we'd have lost concentration, or we just made a mistake like we did for the goal. But we'll go through the lineup now, and that'll lead me on nicely to the goal that we did concede, and I'll be able to give my thoughts on that, hopefully. I think in terms of the lineup, it was unchanged apart from one change for Phillips coming in for D and Garner, which was soon swapped back later on in the game, so didn't really last long, that particular change. However, so we started with Johnston in goal, with the classic 3 at the back, of course. Johnston was in goal, and he started the game really well. I thought he was coming off his line really effectively, clearing the ball, and he looked really assured in terms of in front of goal. So I was pleased with Johnston to see him doing that, and to see him coming off his line, bringing the ball out, and just taking the ball away from opposition defenders. Because when you're playing that high line, it's so important to have a keeper that can come out and do the sweeping for you, and essentially try and move forwards, and try and keep the play in our possession and keep it sort of out of our half, because that's not where we want to play. Because our defence, although it looks sturdy to me, it does have some flaws if you get in behind those wing backs. So Johnston made the mistake for the goal. I think we can all establish that it was his mistake. But I think it was a mistake from him. Obviously, Brenton Diaz went through towards Johnston. Johnston should have absolutely booted it into the stand. I would have myself. I think most people would have, but it's sort of ricocheted off Diaz and ended up going and letting him have an open goal and a nice tap in for himself. So yeah, I think that was unfortunate. I think that was a little bit unfortunate for the goal to go in that way. As Blackburn did create a few better chances in the match, and I don't think their goal should have come that way. I think they should have scored a nicer goal, really, or they should have. I'd hoped it wouldn't come from Johnston's problem, but I think that Johnston made a mistake. I'm not going to get on his back. I'm not going to get on his back and cause him a load of grief, which I think a few Albion fans have done. But I think he made a mistake. He knew he made a mistake, and it's going to happen when you're pushing the line so high up, and you're going to have a sweeper keeper in behind. It's going to happen. Of course, Johnston's going to make mistakes. He's not a born sweeper keeper. It's not something that he does. But if you look at somebody like Edison, or you look at somebody who sweeps quite effectively, maybe somebody like, I don't know, Alisson could come into that bracket perhaps as well. Saw Edouard Mendy do it a few times for Chelsea in the Arsenal game. It happens. It does happen, and keepers do make mistakes from these kinds of situations. And you look at the mistakes that Edison's made. You look at the mistakes that somebody like Mendy would make in goal from coming out and sweeping. It happens. It happens to the best goalkeepers in the world. When you're playing such a high line and you're leaving yourself isolated against the goalkeeper, it can happen. It can happen. These mistakes do occur, and the best thing is just to keep going with it. Don't, in terms of Sam Johnston, don't let it fault his confidence. Don't let him get him down, really, because if you get down about things like that, as goalkeeper, it can put you off quite a lot. So Johnston, I think he just needs to lift his head up. Hopefully he'll be okay about that. He knew he'd made the mistake as soon as almost the ball ricocheted off Diaz, but yeah, unfortunate for Johnston, and hopefully he'll come back from that mistake. But I'm not going to place a load of hassle on him. I'm going to get angry because it will happen as a sweeper keeper. It's not, obviously I was frustrated with the way the goal went in because we of all the opportunities we did concede to, it was that one really. But it was a good ball from I can't remember who played the ball through, but it might have been that young Layston Clarkson who I thought looked really nice for Blackburn. In the midfield. I thought he looked pretty decent. But yeah, I think in terms of the goal conceded, I wish it would have been a better carved opportunity. It was a nice ball from. It was a nice ball from, I think it was Leighton Clarkson, who I think played really well, by the way. Bit of credit to him. But yeah, so the goalkeeping error was not something to behold, but the back three was. I thought they were particularly solid in this game. Unfortunately, Matt Clark left the field in the 42nd minute with an injury, but I thought he looked really decent I think he just has looked really decent. I think he's just looked so solid. He looks at home in the Albion defence at the moment, and I think we should be really proud of what we got there in a loan signing. If he was available for £5 million at the start of the window, I really hope that we can still get him for £5 million at the end of this window because he looked really, really good. I think he just looked phenomenal, and I would be, by the end, I hope he doesn't have a recall clause, but if he's still here at the end of the season, I'd be one to activate his buyout clause, depending on his injuries, because obviously he's had quite a few so far. Well, not quite a few, but he's had his fair share of injuries so far. Obviously missed the Bournemouth game with an injury in the warm-up. Also missed the game again. Also missed half the game against. Well, a bit of the game against Luton, which we ended up completely capitulating after that substitution, and then missed a bit of this game as well. So we're hoping that he can get back into full fitness. We're not. I think we do miss him a little bit in the back line. I know he's a new player, and I know he's only just come to the club, but we would miss him if we were to have a long-term injury. But it was a hamstring injury, believed not to be as serious as first thought, which I hope stays that way, and I hope he is okay after that. But in terms of that, I hope that Matt Clark is okay. But Ollie's been asked to do a fairly simple job in the centre of defence. I don't think he's had many plaudits because he looked okay. But he's just being asked to do simple things, being asked to head, kick and defend. And I don't think I'd want anything else from Bartley, but he's just essentially just heading the ball away, kicking the players, kicking the ball away. It's quite simple for him, which I think is most useful for him, rather than, being asked to play out from the back, being asked to go onto his left side, which we know he doesn't like, being asked to shift out and do a different job. I think it's best for Bartley that he just stays nice and comfortable where he's heading, kicking, and defending with the ball away. So, yeah, Carl Bartley, he's just doing a solid job in the middle, being asked to do simple tasks, and I don't think he's doing any of them particularly badly. But I just worry if a fast person or a fast striker does get past one of Clark or O'Shea, who tend to be sort of shielding him from any form of pace. Obviously, they're not the quickest themselves, but they are slightly quicker than I think Bartley would be. But they are getting in behind. And if somebody does get in behind and they're one-on-one with Bartley, I do worry because he's sort of being shielded by O'Shea and Clark and kind of preventing him from getting into those duels with them as much as possible. So, yeah, if he does get isolated, I do worry, but hopefully he won't. Hopefully the defensive plan will continue to work. O'Shea's really stepped up this season as well, been a real leader, and I think we should be really pleased with how he's come to fruition in the team. I think he's just been outstanding for us, and I'm buzzing with the way that we've started. I'm really pleased with him. I'm pleased with his efforts in the defence. Obviously, he's really come through the first team. That he came through, could join the club in about 2016, I think. But he's come through after loan spells. He was really good at Exeter when he had a loan spell there, from what I've heard from what the manager said about him. But he should be really proud of himself, Dara O'Shea, with the way that he's he started this season, and I hope it continues because there's a place in this back line for him if he wants it enough, and hopefully it becomes his permanently. So yeah, pleased with Dara O'Shea's performance, pleased with the back three's performance really. Donald Furlong and Connor Townsend were the wing backs again. Donald Furlong, or Throwlong as we like to call him now, his throw-ins weren't so effective. It's going to happen against some sides that are going to work it out. Some teams are going to be more physical in the air. Some teams are going to be more organised to these things now that they're starting to be well publicised. Obviously, we saw the nice man with the towel, handing Darnell Furlong the towel, which was nice. But yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit worrying that I hope that we don't end up. I hope we don't end up completely eliminating our long throws from our game, because it is a very, very useful weapon, in my opinion, to have that in your armoury, just to be able to chuck the ball in the box and it cause a load of havoc. It caused Sheffield absolute manic in their box. Honestly, I still think they could be playing today against the Sheffield United with that long throw, and I still think they wouldn't know what to do. They struggled to defend, but Blackburn, they got it right. I think they sort of prevented the first cross coming in, and they sort of prevented the first ball from being flicked on, and it did work for them. But I think that they defended it well, and I think when it's kind of a more physical defence, obviously you had Carter in there, who's a centre-back playing right-back for Blackburn Rovers. You had Darragh Lenihan, who's very physical, very good centre-back. And same with Daniel Ayala, who's probably one of the most no-nonsense centre-backs I've seen in the Championship over recent years. They're going to be able to head that ball away quite easily. So it just kind of depends on what team you're playing against. Obviously, we've got three big centre-backs. So obviously you had three big centre-backs there for Blackburn. So if there's less than three big centre-backs to throw the ball into, against and to oppose our three big centre backs, then perhaps it might be a bit easier for us. But yeah, let's hope that it isn't like that against Blackburn. But I think the long throw shouldn't be completely overused every single game, because teams will get used to it. But I think it's a really useful effort if you need a goal, and it could win you. It could win you many games this season. It could win you just that 1-0 away game that you just need an extra 3 points from, or an extra couple of points from, and the long throw wins it for you, and you'll be happy as Larry. So yeah, I think it's going to work. Connor Townsend was produced for me a particularly solid performance. He's one of these kind of unsung heroes. He's not getting goal contributions at left wing back so far. He's not really getting loads of praise, loads of plaudits, but he's doing a very good job, really. I'll just talk through some of his stats, because I thought the stats were particularly impressive in terms of Colin Townsend in that game. 6 duels won. Also managed 4 aerial duels won, 6 interceptions, 8 ball recoveries. It's not bad stats from Connor Townsend, and he did work really well down that left-hand side. He's just a bit of a workhorse. He's one of those players that will, although he really doesn't have too much of an affiliation to the club, will work his socks off game in, game out. So Connor Townsend, fair play to you. You've done really well. And he started the season excellently, as most of the Albion squad have. Into centre midfield now. We'll start with the magic man. It's Alex Mohr, man of the match. What a player we have got on our hands here, and for nothing, it's ridiculous. I just don't think you find those sorts of bargains in football anymore. There were teams offering him contracts. There was Barnsley offering the most lucrative contract they've ever offered a Barnsley player, and he turned them down. And he's come here. He's proved himself. He started the season excellently, and he started the game excellently, didn't he? Just winning the high press, winning the ball with the high press, high up the pitch, straight from kickoff. It was fantastic. It was Blackburn's kickoff as well. It was Blackburn's kickoff, and we scored within 40 or 30 seconds there. The ball chipped from Phillips was a really nice one, perfectly set up for the volley, but Mohr still had a load to do there to notch that in the top corner like he did. And to get the elevation on it without it flying over the bar, because you see those so often as they're rising, as Alex Mohr's was, they do tend to just fly over the bar, but he got it so spot on, and it was a beautiful goal. And he deserves an immense amount of credit for what he's brought to the team so far. He's just looked absolutely class, I think. Just winning the ball in midfield, his tenacity, his ability to pass the ball off when he's won the ball. He's just covering every blade of grass on the pitch, and it's so great to see a player do that. But the left-footed strike, is it Chris Brunt? I think it's Chris Brunt in disguise. That is the biggest compliment I can pay him, really, is that he's got Chris Brunt's left foot. I think is what I can use to say about Alex Mohr. But massive fair play to Alex Mohr for stepping into the team and starting off really well from the go. Jake Livermore was alongside him, just doing simple tasks really well. I think Valérien Ismaël knows and is aware of that he's a bit of a limited footballer, and he can't quite do all of the things that most footballers can, like spraying 50-yard passes like Alex Mohr perhaps next to him. But he's doing a really good job alongside him, just pressing, winning the ball back, being nice and physical. It's nice to see. So yeah, I think we've got no complaints about that whatsoever, to be honest, and I'm really pleased with how he's been playing so far. So yeah, massive well done to Alex Mohr, doing really well so far. But yeah, and Jake Livermore alongside him doing really well. So the midfield pairing's working well. I'm just worried about injury suspensions because Livermore and Mohr are now both on 2 yellow cards. So perhaps there may become a suspension very soon. Worried a little bit about that, but hopefully not. Hopefully we do keep ourselves in order and hopefully we don't end up getting either suspended. But I think it will come, and that's why you need more squad depth in the midfield, which we'll talk about a bit later in terms of transfers. But Livermore and Mohr for now, doing a fantastic job, going into the front three now. And I'm going to give some praise now, a bit of praise, to Karlan Grant, who I think played really well against Blackburn, did what I'd expect perhaps Grady Dean Garner to do. Obviously, Dean Garner hasn't really set the league alight this season so far because the front three is so narrow that all the players are coming almost squishing together to make the press more effective, of course, but when the ball's being won by somebody like Dean Garner, he's got no option but to cut inside. He'd like to come off the touchline and have that sort of runway into the defence and like have a bit of a jink and then get past them. But he hasn't got that because he's starting so infield and almost inside the fullback. But obviously, Karlan Grant did what I expect Dean Garner to do by jinking in and out of defenders, winning the ball high up the pitch, taking the ball past them, and obviously assisting Phillips' goal beautifully with a really nice cross straight to the back post to Phillips, who scored his first goal of the season and got himself an assist today for Alex Mohr's goal as well. So yeah, Matt Phillips doing really well in that. With that, and I thought that Karlan Grant played fantastically alongside Matt Phillips. Their pressing was phenomenal. Same with Callum Robinson. I think that's just such a fit and athletic front three, in my opinion. So fair play to them. They are working their socks off as those three, and they did today. Again, in terms of substitutions that came off the bench, Semi Ajayi came off, and he just provided a bit of pace around the back. I think it was nice to have that cover, but obviously the goal did come after Semi Ajayi was on the pitch, so I suppose I can't really justify that fact. But I thought he looked quite good sweeping around the back of the defence. Dean Garner looked a bit better when he came on. He looked really, really good when he was jinking through defenders. I thought he had a bit more. He did a couple of like looped balls over the top, and I thought he looked quite confident. Maybe he is slightly better as that substitute comes off the bench later on in the game. Saw it in Bilic, he was quite effective when that happened. But yeah, we'll see about Dean Garner. And Tulloch came on for his league debut late on in the game, which was also really, really nice to see. So glad to see Tulloch getting off the bench and getting his first league appearance for Albion. But yeah, that'll do me for my analysis of our starting 11. But I was really pleased with the performance. I thought in terms of the expected goals, I think we smashed it, and we will score more of those opportunities, hopefully, if a striker is to come in. But we'll talk transfer news after this short little break. But now we're going to go straight over to the Rovers Chat YouTube channel, where we're going to hear from Oliver, who sent in his thoughts from the Rovers Chat channel. Check out Rovers Chat YouTube channel and page in the description and their social medias. Go and check them out because they do a great job with all things Blackburn Rovers. So if you want to go and check them out, make sure you go and see the links in the description, as all of their links will be there. But massive thank you to Oliver for sending in his thoughts. Let's go and hear what he has to say.
Hello to Louis and all at the Baggies Podcast. I'm Ollie Walker-Peel from Rovers Chat, and I'm here to discuss West Brom's 2-1 win over my Blackburn Rovers. I thought it was a good game to watch. I thought that if I'm removing any bit of bias, that West Brom deserved to win. I thought that we gave a really, really good account of ourselves, especially in the second half. It's the toughest team that Rovers have played this season by a fair way. The best side I've seen in the Championship, and probably now, I can't remember who I had pre-season, whether I had Fulham or West Brom to win the league. I think I've seen Fulham once, I've seen West Brom now twice. I think West Brom are the best side in this division, and I thought we gave you lot a really good run for our money. But yeah, it didn't really start well for us. Obviously, Alex Mohr with an absolute thunderbolt. That's the best goal that I reckon I'll see all season. Rovers are otherwise absolute screamer in the opening minute. And obviously it was 2-0, right at the end of the first half. Great ball from Carlin Grant across the box, and Matt Phillips was there to tap in at the back post. And just exemplify the notion that in the first half especially, that front three of Robinson, Grant and Phillips were just brilliant. They just caused so many problems for us, and I thought that they were among the best for West Brom yesterday, but not the best player. I think West Brom's best player yesterday, I think most people would agree with me on this as well, it was Darnell Furlong. He caused so many problems down the West Brom right that we couldn't even deal with. I thought that Harry Pickering had a decent game, but often couldn't deal with him. I thought that Harry Pickering was really good going forward, but defensively, Darnell Furlong caused a lot of issues for him. So I thought he was the best player for West Brom. Obviously, we got back into the game through a bit of a howler from Sam Johnston, but Ben Brio Diaz was able to tap into an empty net, which gave us a bit of hope. I thought that 2-1 on the balance of play, getting ourselves a goal, we probably deserved one, but yeah, it was just unlucky that we were unable to find a winner. Obviously, Sam Johnston redeemed himself with a brilliant save to deny Jacob Davenport what would have been an equaliser in the closing minutes, but I'm not too disheartened. Obviously, it's our first league defeat of the season. Obviously, defeats are a part of football, so if you're losing to a side like West Brom, who, let's face it, played Premier League football last season, next season we'll probably be playing Premier League football again. Have kept hold of the most of their good players, and excluding Matthias Pereira, the quality side, there's not too much shame in losing to a side like that, and especially when you give a good account of ourselves. I'm not too disheartened. Obviously, I thought Thomas Kaminski was brilliant for us. The best player from a Rovers point of view by a mile, and I think very unlucky not to be awarded man of the match, even in a losing cause. I think it is between him and Darnell Furlong if you are going to award man of the match honours. I thought Kaminski made about 7 or 8 really, really good saves to keep us in at 2-1. Various stage of the game, he made a pretty decent double save before Mowatt's opening minute goal as well. So I thought that Kaminski was amazing for us, but we just couldn't get the job done, and it's disappointing, but it is the way it is. In terms of going forward from an outfield point of view, I thought Leighton Clarkson, the Blackburn loanee, was quality as well. Obviously got the assist for Ben Brereton Diaz's goal, and the ball outside of the foot was quality. He should have had another assist in the first half as well. It was nearly Clarkson to Diaz again, but unable to work for him that time after Diaz blazed it off target. But yeah, I'm not too disheartened, as I say. Obviously, I think West Brom will be right up there. Second time I've seen West Brom play this season. I watched the game against Bournemouth on the opening weekend, and I thought that West Brom were quality that day, and I thought they were quality again. Hopefully in the reverse fixture at the Hawthorns, probably one of the toughest places to go in the Championship this season. Hopefully it's a different story and we can maybe get over the line. But thanks for having me on to all the Baggies podcast. Obviously, congratulations on the result yesterday, and best of luck for the rest of the season, excluding the game when we come down to the Midlands and play you lot. Cheers and take care. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Oliver for sending in that video on his thoughts on the Blackburn Albion game. Big thank you for him to sending that in. So make sure you go and check out the Rovers Chat YouTube channel, and links in the description of the podcast. But yeah, let's go and hear some fan reaction. Let's hear from you guys. You guys have been sending in a few questions, which I'd like to talk about, really, because you guys sent in some pretty interesting ones this week. So the first one comes in from Bowden, who says, another stupid error leading to a goal. We know Bowden. Yeah, Sam Johnston at fault for that particular one. He also says, what transfers or changes would you make to the squad? With me, I think Ajayi is defensively is shocking, and Bartley. I think O'Shea has made a massive step up and Clark made a big impact. But in my opinion, we need another centre-back and a striker. So, Bowden, I think it was a stupid error leading to a goal. We hope that doesn't happen again, but it will. It will happen probably a couple of times this season, unfortunately, unless it gets unless it really gets out of unless it really gets out of hand. So yeah, I think Ajayi. I think reading of the game, I don't think he's great, but pace, he does provide a lot of that. I know he's a bit. I don't want to call him a pace merchant, but that is what he offers. Sweeping in behind the defence, and he does offer nice aggressive defending, like in terms of bringing out the ball and trying to come out and win it straight away. And that's where he does cause himself a bit of problems, because he's always trying to win the ball, and that sometimes gets him in a bit of a pickle, because sometimes the best thing as a defender is just to leave the ball and just jockey your man. But he does want to be aggressive. Bartley, I don't think he's defensively shocking. I think he does what he does very well, but it's very simple things. Don't expect him too much fantastic. I think in terms of where you're marking him up against O'Shea and also Matt Clark, they're both complete defenders next to him. But Bartley in the middle is kind of just this defender doing something quite a simple job, really, if you look at what he's actually got to do. So yeah, I think Ajayi reading of the game, I don't think it's great, but I think his pace is as valuable as anything. But I think Bartley, he does what he does very well. I think O'Shea and Clark are fantastic centre-back, but I think Bartley is just a very good, no-nonsense centre-back, really. In my opinion, he says we need another centre-back and a striker. I think centre-back, I think we're fine. I'd be okay with Kipre and Ajayi deputising for the back three. I wouldn't be too against that. Maybe there's need for somebody else, perhaps on loan, but I wouldn't spend too much of your budget on it, considering Kipre is championship quality. He just needs a bit of time to adjust. He's struggled. He hasn't played championship football for quite a while, so he just needs to adjust to it. I saw him at Wigan. He is a good defender. He had a great performance against us at home when Wigan beat us 1-0. So I think there is a championship defender in there. You just need to give him a bit of time. Maybe give him a game against Arsenal on Wednesday night. But yeah, I think a striker is needed. A striker is something that we definitely need to look at. We need a differential because teams are going to get used to dealing with strikers like Robinson, Grant, Dean Garner, small lightweight players who are very quick along the ground, but when the ball comes in the air, they get dominated. And I do think you need the ball to stick a little bit better up there sometimes. So for me, Daryl DK, he's available. Go and get him. Just go and get the deal done. He's on loan with a loan to buy. Go and get him. If we get promoted, give him 10 million and buy him. I think he's a great striker. I've watched some videos on him. He looks like a young Lukaku. Buy him. Just do it. I think it's just so useful. It would be just such a useful player to have. I know he's not going to come off the bench, but I'd just love to see Grant and Robinson either side of him. It would be absolutely deadly. Just buy Daryl DK. Just do the business, Albion. He's the striker there. He knows the manager knows him. The manager knows exactly what he can get from him. He scored 9 goals in 13 starts for Barnsley last season. Just get the deal done. I think he's an absolute must-buy if he's available on a loan to buy. Just get the deal done, Albion. Come on. I think the time in the window is really running out now for me. I think it's just typical Albion, really, just to leave it to the last minute. Whoever comes in, unless it's somebody who's already played Valerian Ismail's system, like or DK as his actual name is supposed to be pronounced. It's something that you need to think about. I mean, some players are going to need time to adapt. Like Adam Reach, saw him, needed a couple of weeks before he could play. What's that going to be like with other players? I know they might be slightly fit if they've been playing regular football, but just get it done. Just get it done, Albion. I think it's just absolutely necessary for you to get it done. So yeah, I think just get another striker in. It's desperately needed. But yeah, let's go over to another question. This one comes in from the Rainbow Stand, who says, here we go. He says, never really looked in doubt with the victory. Probably should have scored 4 or 5. And the question is, last season Valerian Ismail had the luxury of using 5 subs to use when players understandably get tired. Can we keep this intensity up all season with the current squad and 3 subs? So yeah, in terms of the victory, didn't really look in doubt, and we should have scored more. I think it did look in doubt. I got a bit worried towards the end, but that's just typical Albion to think that we're going to come away with a draw after such a convincing or dominant performance. However, I think the 5 subs is going to be something that he relied on last season, and it was very helpful for him. But the 3 subs, I think we can keep it up with 3 subs, but I think with the current squad, I think you do need some additions in there, especially in midfield. I think you think about the additions that we have in midfield with Livermore and Mohr in there, and you think about who we've got on the bench to replace those. I think Phillips could probably do a job in midfield. You've obviously got Kevin Castro who can do a job there. Adam Reach, I think he's definitely more of a left-sided player rather than centre midfielder. So I don't think this squad can keep it up all season. I think you do need a couple more additions, especially in centre midfield. Maybe a loan, a decent signing, and a striker on loan with the view to buy. So my shopping list, ideally, I'd like to see Yokoslu come into the frame. He's available for 4 million on deadline day. I can't see why you can't just get it done. He's going to need some work with fitness and stuff like that, I'm sure, but I don't see why you wouldn't try and get that done. And then maybe a midfielder on loan from one of the bigger clubs in the Premier League that needs a bit of game time or something. And then a striker, DK, loan to buy, or Liam Delap perhaps on loan, just somebody like that. I think in terms of the in terms of the 3 subs, I think we'll be fine with that. But the squad depth is not there for Albion. I think, a few more quality additions, we're up. I think that we could go at relatively comfortably. I think if you bring in the right players and with the right ability. So I think that just needs to be done and get it done. And then I'm sure that we'll be okay in terms of promotion or getting nearer then. But yeah, I think hopefully that we can bring that, and hopefully that we can bring in some players that are going to really bring that squad to light. But yeah, cheers to you two for your questions and your thoughts on the game. Hopefully we'll get to another win next week against Arsenal, and then we've got a game on Saturday against Peterborough. Of course, there'll be match reaction after the Peterborough game, talking about both of those games, and also some previews in the week on our YouTube channel, so make sure you go and check those out. But that does bring me to the end of the Baggies podcast for this week, so thank you very much for joining me for this episode 54. If you're new around here, be sure to subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. Massive thank you to Oliver for joining me and for sending in his thoughts on the Rovers from the Rovers Chat channel. Check them out in the link in the description. Let me know your thoughts on the new microphone. Is it doing it for you? Is it making the sound quality a little better? Hopefully it is. But yeah, that does bring me to the end of this episode of the Baggies podcast. Hope to see you very, very soon, Albion fans, and hopefully you have a fantastic week. Enjoy the games this week, and I'll see you on the next episode. Goodbye.